Well, only in mortgage are we late for something, and only in mortgage does something unexpected happen. But that is the tangled web we weave in this business none of us thought we were going to get into. It's Greg Sher here for an edition of One on One, and I'm so delighted to bring in Jerry Schiano. This guy is really unbelievable. In addition to being the chief executive officer at SpringEQ, really a unicorn among us and a soft-spoken one that you're not going to see that often in the public domain, but for some reason he has signed up to be a glutton for punishment and to join me here. Jerry, great to see you.
It's good to see you, Greg.
You're pretty quick on your feet with this computer thing. We had a little glitch here,
Oh
and
my goodness.
you navigated through it. I'm very impressed.
I was lucky.
Yeah, well, you know what? I've actually heard you interviewed before, and you described your venture into mortgage as kind of lucky as well. You were working in the marketing department of a furniture store,
Insurance company.
insurance company rather, and then it just so happens that a young lady that you were working with, a colleague, had a husband who was looking to hire in mortgage, and before you knew it, you were cleaning out a closet, an equipment or supply closet of some sort, and
That's right.
I did my homework, Jerry. I know you would expect that. And you moved in there, and you were so excited to have half commission and half salary, and the rest is history. You've become one of the most successful people of any generation in mortgage, and I'm really grateful that you've accepted this invitation to spend a little time with me. I really am, and you've been a part of three. You've built three companies that have been acquired. I mean, most people just wouldn't even dream about building one and being acquired. I know it's about so much more than that for you. It's about the people and the mission, and we're going to get into all of that. So I don't want you to think I'm going to stay high level money,
Right.
but you're living the dream, man, aren't you?
I'm working hard like everybody else, and I have some really good days and some days I'd like to forget. So I guess that's kind of the dream, right?
That is definitely kind of the dream, I guess. Although you're downplaying a little bit. I mean, I remember Wilmington Finance because I've been in the business 26, 27 years, and you were in wholesale. You built an unbelievable company that was later acquired, and then you went into New Penn. You know, everybody knows that name, right? And then you got out of that. You got out of that after staying on board for a while, and then into SpringEQ. I know I look at you as someone that always seems to know what's coming. Is that safe to say that you've placed bets on what you saw further out, and they've come in those bets?
Well, it's sometimes you see what's like Wilmington Finance. I used to work for a company, Conti Mortgage, and then there was the great demise of subprime companies. So from the ashes sometimes becomes opportunity. So it created Wilmington Finance based upon that there was a better way to do subprime, right? So then along the way sold that company to an AIG company. And a couple of years later, the whole market fell apart in 2007, 2008. But New Penn was set up on the concept that sooner or later, we needed mortgages. It just needed to be done a little bit different and a little bit better. And that was the concept of New Penn as set up from the ashes of 2007, 2008. And then along the way, we refinanced so many people that at some point in time, you had the feeling that refinances would slow, but people's need for cash and to consolidate debt wouldn't. So I thought there would be an opportunity for home equity. Now, it took a little bit longer because I didn't count on this thing called the pandemic. Wasn't really sure at that time what a pandemic was until it hit. But I think the concept was right. It just was delayed a little bit because the pandemic. I never thought people would refinance 4% rates, and all of a sudden 4% became 2.5% and 3%.
So you mentioned rising from the ashes. As you look out now, I mean, there are considerable ashes all around us, right? There always are in mortgage, right? I mean, we're always coming out of something or going into something. As you look into your crystal ball, I mean, I don't know, you probably don't want to give away any secrets here, but what's coming next? You know, if you had to, I mean, I know you're very immersed in SpringEQ, but what are some things people might want to look out for in the future?
The honest answer, Greg, is I'm not sure yet because every other market change came from a fact of something going wrong, right? the subprime got too aggressive, mortgage lending, conventional, and everything else got too aggressive. And then right now, the problem has been people have rates that are so low. So there's not really a problem in the market except people have such a good deal. So it's caused a change. And I'm trying to think of what's next. I think that, we see a market where even if you do a lot of business, it's tight in terms of profit. So I'm looking out there like everybody else to see what I think is in the future. I'm not sure yet, is the honest answer. What do you think? You spend a lot of time on this.
Jerry, the only thing that I am the only business I'm building and selling is football cards right now with my son. I don't think I'm qualified. What do I think is coming? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, there's a lot of factors in this moment in time, I think, that weren't present in other periods of time, namely technology. The business is a late adopter to it. And I know you've, your educational career includes marketing and economics degrees from Long Island University. So you see the industry from this lens that other people don't see. And so I want to go backwards a little bit later, but I want to just ask you now, since the conversation seems to be going this way, like AI, technology, I mean, from what you've been able to see, how much of a disruptor do you anticipate that being in mortgage, for better or for worse?
Well, I think technology always used properly is for better, right? The people who fight technology don't stay around long. The key to, if you take a look at mortgage, right, there's a couple costs. Cost of acquisition, which includes marketing and paying people, the cost of manufacturing, and then what people don't realize is the other big cost of mortgage is the cost of mistakes, right? So I think that technology certainly helps to reduce the cost of mistakes, and it could reduce the cost of manufacturing. The question is, how much can it reduce the cost of acquisition? And that's where most of the cost is. And that's what I think people are trying to figure out, because a lot of, old refinance shops are doing a lot of purchase, but they can't get a lot of margin out of that yet, even with the technology. So that's where the challenge is how does AI help that acquisition side? Because that's where the real cost is in mortgage, or the most of the cost.
Right. And so interesting that you would go there because that's marketing, right? I mean, isn't that what that's all about? Again, we're back to marketing, which you specialize in.
Marketing and sales cost,
no, of course. Like, you've got to bring the consumer in. And so you've seen what we've done at NFM with the influencer division. You've seen people step out into social media, and you've got some people that say, you've got to have this tool in your toolbox or you're not going to survive. You're not going to be around in 3 years. Like, are you, I know you're online. I see you're online once in a while. You'll jump in, you'll make a comment, and you're world famous. Your Facebook page is something else. We'll get into that in a minute. That's a side note here. The funny faces of Jerry Schiano. We're going to break a few of those out, believe me. But do you buy into it? Do you buy into the idea that the consumer is going to be moving to the front of the funnel a lot sooner through these kind of influencer types?
Well, you're the one who taught me that, Greg. I remember you called me up a few years ago, and we had lunch at some place in Maryland, and you said, I figured out how to get leads without paying any money. And you took me through that, and I'm like, wow, this guy is ahead of everybody. So I learned that from you at a crappy little restaurant somewhere in Maryland.
Well, at least you paid, as I recall. I appreciate that. But what are your thoughts? I mean, you've now seen, like, we had lunch together, I don't know, 3 years ago. So you've had the benefit now of a 36-month window where I know you paid closer attention. What do you see when you look out there?
It's an interesting world, right? I had a friend over, and their daughter's friend was an influencer, right? She earns her living, doesn't have a job, and all she does is post pictures of herself at various locations. And, me being a little bit of a different era, that's so bizarre that that's a real job, but it really is. So when you take that influencer power, and you really have done this more than anybody I've seen in this business, maybe rocket a bit too, but if you take that influencer power and generate leads from that and those leads convert, I think that is part of the future. I mean, now there's nothing like a good relationship, and those loan officers who have good relationship will be part of that future also. But if you can get 20, 30, 40% of your business from influencer leads, that's dramatic to your bottom line.
No question, no question about that. Yeah, and we've seen it for sure, and it's interesting. It's an interesting time. So pivoting now to COVID and what came out of that, it's sort of decelerated, as you said, your business, and then, but suddenly on the other side of it, I would imagine it accelerated it, right? Because you've got all these rates, no one can get out of it. Everyone's got all this equity. I mean, didn't it turn out to be the perfect storm for your vision in SpringEQ?
It was definitely a storm. We went from the month before COVID having our best month ever to 30 days not wondering if we could make it through it and being in business, and then 90 days later being off to the races. So it is like this business. If you're not in for a roller coaster, it's the wrong business, because what I've always said, there's some months where you could do no wrong, you're running downhill. And there's some months where no matter what you do, you're always running uphill. So we went through COVID, we made it through. We've always been a home equity company, but liquidity was very tight for home equity during that period. So we started doing first, and then we've evolved back into our home equity play for the most part. So I think we'll all look back in COVID, whether that be business wise and personally, and say that's hopefully a defining moment we won't see any other time during our life.
Ever again. Going back to how you got into the business, a colleague of yours had a husband who was looking to hire some people. You started out as a salesperson, right?
Salesman, yeah.
Yeah, sales manager, and you became really good at that, right? But I want to know how you went from cleaning out a supply closet and becoming a salesperson to having the chutzpah, as the Jews would say. I can say that because I'm Jewish. Having the chutzpah to, then open up a company and put it all on the line, like the courage it takes to do that. Could you just give us some high-level remarks on that?
I've always been a reluctant entrepreneur. So I've met some of my peers in this business that are so entrepreneurial. They're investing in mortgage companies and this and that. I've kind of been an entrepreneur because it made sense. So I worked for a company, Conti Mortgage. I joined them as a sales manager. We went from 100 employees to 5,000, rang the bell on the New York, not me, but somebody rang the bell on the New York Stock Exchange. Then all of a sudden the market went crash because of long-term capital. And all of a sudden it kind of started falling apart a little bit. And I was looking at, do I want to tough through this, or maybe it's time because it's to start my own business, because all of a sudden my income is going to go down. So basically that's why I did it. In terms of
and how big did you grow Wilmington Finance?
Wilmington Finance, we had about 2,300 employees. At our peak, we probably making a pre-tax earning of a couple $100 million, about 200 and something million dollars.
And since we're talking numbers, I'm assuming it's public. What did that sell for?
I don't disclose that.
Okay. All right. I mean, there's $190 million number out there. I can't remember if that was that or if that was the next venture of yours. I mean, you're downplaying it though, Jerry. You're downplaying. I mean,
no, we hit it. We were lucky, and the market was right. And
have you been lucky 3 times? Can you be lucky? Is that even possible that someone can be lucky 3 times? Wilmington Finance, was the first, obviously, and later after that, it's not. You had New Penn, now you have SpringEQ. Like, can you really get lucky 3 times? Isn't there something more than luck?
You have to put yourself in a position to be lucky, right? I know some people, if luck hit them in the head, they would duck, or and you put yourself in a position to be lucky. And I think what you have to do is read the market. So when we developed Wilmington Finance, we had a good model. It worked very well. And every month it was like, that market was crazy in the early 2000s, right? And in 2003, I looked at the market and I said, I think this is just overheated, right? Now, I was wrong. It was almost overheated. It took about 2 or 3 years for more to be overheated. So we had an opportunity to get value for our shareholders and we took it, right? Because you had to know at some point in time the market was going to shift. Everything was just too hot, right? But God knows, I never thought it would shift the way it did, where it went from a complete, putting your foot on the gas to a collapse. So,
all right, we'll go somewhere else then. What's it like to be in a room with that kind of money? Like, what's it like to be sitting, having negotiations and conversations that are in the hundreds of millions? Like, did you ever think you'd be there? And then what's it like to actually be in the middle of that?
well, I grew up in a very struggling middle class. My dad passed away when we were young, and my mom went to work, right? And I went to community college for 2 years, and then I finished my school at Long Island University. Next to C.W. Post Long Island University was a town called Brookville. I would drive past that town and wonder, how could anybody possibly have enough money to live in such a wonderful place? So I never expected to be in an industry that gave you the opportunity to make significant money if you worked hard and put yourself in the right place. So we're in a very strange industry that, unlike any others, as you know, Greg, the ups are enormous and the downs are very difficult. So I'm lucky to be in this business. I joined this business because really, it wasn't that I got an opportunity in the mortgage business. I hated the job I was in. So I was willing to go on half commission just because I felt like I was stuck in an insurance company marketing. I needed something else. So worked out.
What about the second part to that question? What's it like to come from such humble beginnings where you couldn't imagine living in that neighborhood to sitting with Stutz or whoever talking about 200 million, just those kinds of numbers?
Well, I don't know about those kinds of numbers. What I could tell you
Any
is
kind of number being
I
acquired.
think if you do well, you're lucky enough to be able to help the people you love. And to be able to help the people you love, I think is a good thing. And I've been fortunate enough to do that. And it's, there's a lot of consumers. I look at the wealth in this country, and it's crazy. Like, I was just in the Hamptons and there's so much wealth. But then you look at the credit card debt, and there's so much credit card debt, and it's blowing up. So I'm happy to not have to live off of credit cards and worry about that in today's society, and lucky to be where I am.
Yeah. What did you learn from the first transaction to the third transaction? You know what I mean? It's like you have a kid, right? And you panic and you do all these things and you're like, oh my goodness, I got to change your diapers every 5 minutes. And you have a second kid and you're like, it can stay soiled for an hour. It's no big deal. Like, were there lessons?
Third kid gets some Dunkin' Donuts in front of the TV.
Yeah. Were there things what did you learn from the first to the third and are there any lessons that you can push out there to public about negotiating, right? Any secrets that you've learned from your exploits?
Well, the first thing I learned is it doesn't matter what you did yesterday. Now, you can get into some rooms based upon what you did yesterday and maybe get some opportunities. But as soon as you open up your business, nobody cares what your last business is. And what you have to do is make sure you work really hard on the current business and forget about any fact that, boy, I've already done this. Because what you do, and you know this, when you open up a new business, you have all these great thoughts of how great it's going to be and how the people you're working for have it all wrong and you're going to figure it out. And then something crazy happens. You go into business and the first day you realize, oh my God, so many things suck. So what I find is the best way to be successful is be honest about what you're good at and what you're not good at, and work really hard on the things you're not good at. And then what I've always done is my businesses have been based on myself and outside investors. So the goal has always been at some point in time to monetize the business. And the way that I've done that is not by creating a business that has to sell, but creating a business that somebody wants to buy and they have something So we've been basically, for the most part, a feeder of assets. Wilmington Finance was a feeder of assets. AIG wanted it. New Penn, that's now New Res, was originally bought because a feeder of assets, because Shell Point wanted to securitize. And that's the same thing with Cerberus and First Key in Spring. We're a feeder of assets. So that's kind of the approach that I've taken. And then if you want to be a feeder of assets, how do you make sure the assets are quality? How do you make sure the assets perform? And that's kind of what our mix has been to be successful.
Let's pivot into leadership.
Okay.
What's your style?
Erratically focused.
Erratically focused? Is that what you said?
Erratically focused.
Oh man,
so,
can I relate?
So if there's certain things that I don't need to focus on, I'm good. And I'm a generalist, and I'm thinking grand thoughts. If there's things that are going a little haywire, or where I think can lead us to the next level, then I could become a micromanager, but only for a period of time. So I'm erratic in that regard. It's but
let's talk about leadership industry wide. I don't see you stepping out, and there's only a handful of people that have your credentials, if that. Let's just call it what it is, right?
Right.
It's a challenging business, right? We've got, go back to Dodd-Frank and the changes. There have been so many changes, right? TRID and CFPB coming into play. Like, there's a lot of headwinds to Basel III that, maybe that's not such a headwind anymore.
Right.
I know you have opinions about all of this stuff. Do you ever see a time where you'd want to get out in front of that stuff and sort of lead us as an industry, or help at least throw your hat in the ring?
I think there's better people than I to do that. I look at people like you, and I look at the late Dave Stevens and things of that nature. I think there's people who have that personality to lead more and than me on an industry basis. I tend to be more of a, roll up your sleeves in the muck kind of leader in this side, but I probably could and should do more for the industry. I think you've appropriately called me out on that. I tend to be a little bit more quiet on that side.
Yeah, I've not called you out. Look, you've impacted so many lives, man.
Right.
Most importantly, you've delivered so many good endings to consumers. And, that's what matters. That's why we're all in this. The money's fine. It is what it is. But we're in this to help people get into houses, to accomplish their dreams, right? And so, perfect segue into this brokers are better thing. And, the infighting we've seen among mortgage companies, right? Like, when you see that stuff, when you read trade publications and you hear about this person suing that person and, all the mudslinging, what taking it to a PG-13 level, what do you think when you see all that?
I think that sometimes we could all benefit from more of a maturity. And sometimes, I think it goes into kind of a little bit of a silliness. But the fact of the matter is, there are really, really, really good brokers, and there's really good bankers. And quite honestly, some of the brokers are kind of bankers, and some of the bankers are kind of brokers. So I think that we're in this together. I don't think anything is gained by the mudslinging. And I think there's room for both. Heck, I thought brokers, or the market thought brokers, was dead after, 2008 and 2009. And now, I don't know, what are they, 50? I remember seeing something 50% of the market. So I think there's room for both. I think they both satisfy things, but there is a juvenileness that I think I don't think serves anybody better. I don't. Yeah. And anybody who looks at it, and I see some of the stuff on social media, nobody could like that. That's the way we should portray ourselves.
Is there a company out there or a leader you admire in our space, just how they built their business and otherwise?
Well, let me tell you, there's companies out there, right, that I think they've done interesting things, and I've admired what they've done, right? the first of all, you have to say rocket. They've grown, they've built out the years. You have to admire rocket leadership from, all of the people who've led that, right? For sure. The second company that you'd have to admire is, I don't love some of the things they've done, but it's incredible what UWM has built also. In our first mortgage business, we brokered both of them at various times, and they're both very good. But UWM and what they built, I admire them. And
Me
the
too.
third company that I really has stood out to me, because I really think they grasped the distributed retail model, was Movement Mortgage. And so those three companies stood out to me because UWM and Movement were pure plays in their channel, and they made their channels as best as they could, right? Rocket has done everything pretty well and probably the best marketing company of themselves in this business, in addition to everything else. So those companies always stood out to me.
Freedom Mortgage. Any thoughts
Stan
on
has
that?
done an incredible job. He's he used to be my client years ago when he was small, and he's just crushed it. So
Yeah.
he's crushed it.
Well, I bring him up because there's something you said in another interview. You sort of insinuated that your vision can be best summarized as simplify. Just don't make this too complicated, right? And I remember hearing Stan on stage at Housing Wire about 8 months ago. Something he said, everyone thinks you need all this product. Everybody like, no, you've got a 30-year mortgage. Go get it.
Right.
So that's what reminded when I thought of that, and then I read this about you. I thought, man, these guys, there's some synergies there.
Yeah, no, I've known Stan a long time, and as I said, he's crushed it. The thing that I would say is, when you've seen this, the simpler you make things, the better chance you have of success. Like, I mean, the thing I noticed about UWM is, I want to be the best damn mortgage broker company out there, supplying mortgage broker, and they've done it through their volume, right? Movement Mortgage, that's what I liked about them. I'm focusing on the retail originator. That's what I did at Spring. When we were at New Penn, we had, a bunch of different channels, and we were good, but, when you focus on one channel, I think you have a chance to make it great. And while we might have hit good status, I don't think we hit great status.
Interesting reflection. Are you hard on yourself when it comes to business?
Sure. I think the only way to get better is you gotta figure out a way to improve each day. When my first business, I thought I had it all figured out. We went into business and we didn't have it figured out. We were our part owned by Wilmington Savings Fund Society, and probably one of the best things I did. In 6 months into it, I went to them and said, "This isn't working." And then I go, "I'm going to slow it down until we figured it out." Then we figured it out. And what I learned in business is, every day, I think I gave a presentation to my executive group at that time, and I said, "You know what? I realized something this weekend, that we suck. And what we have to do is every day work a little bit harder to suck a little bit less. And then if we get lucky, someday we'll get to mediocrity, and we keep working hard, maybe we'll get above that." And that's kind of what we did. So I guess that's hard, but it's realizing is what you need to get better at, so you could become above average and even better than that.
So you're in your third major venture that was acquired. We talked about that. And I think you're in your 60s. You look like you're 30, but I believe I did some math on an article I read, and I think you may be either approaching or in your 60s. Is that safe?
I am. Yes, I'm in my 60s. Yeah.
So Jerry, how much longer are you going to do this?
I like to work, because I think working keeps you young, as long as you can control your own schedule. There's an age where I used to feel like I had to be the first one in and the last one to leave. Now I feel like I've gotten mature, that I have to do my job. So I do it with a little bit more flexibility, but I like to work. I think it keeps you sharp, and I think it keeps you young. And a friend of mine from Wilmington Savings Fund Society, who was said that he went out a couple of years ago and saw the Berkshire Hathaway meeting, and he told me that Warren Buffett, this was like 2 or 3 years ago, answered questions at 90 something years old for 4 hours unscripted. So I don't know if I get to 90, but I clearly have a bunch more years in me.
Yeah, so no end in sight. Like you're going to be, we're going to hear from you. You'll still be making your impact for, at least a handful of years beyond
I
this.
hope so.
Yeah, well, I hope so too. And I have to say that, the reason you and I developed a relationship is because I reached out to you and you didn't know who I was. I don't think this was, I don't know how many years ago. And I just, I always admired you, because I own my company. You were at your Wilmington Finance. And then I saw what you did at New Penn. And, I asked you if you'd get on the phone with me and you did. And we had a great conversation and you just immediately were so real and so warm. And I've never forgotten that. And
Well, thank you.
I really admire you, man. I mean, I just can't even tell you, you're on hallowed ground. There's no question about that. Before we go, I want to just look at this guy here.
Oh no.
Because I mean, that's you, right? I mean, that's
me. Yeah.
You kind of still look like this guy. I mean, you really do. So we'll bring this up. I mean,
I may have a few more pounds on me.
Good hairstyle. You had the chain,
Right.
shirt wide open.
That's my Italian heritage.
It is your time. And then if, like I said, you're a social media sensation. Like you're not afraid to let it all hang out. I mean, you've got some funny, you've got a funny, fun side to you.
Right.
I'm not sure if you ate something you didn't like there or what was happening, but hey, look, it's a hard business. You gotta unwind a little bit. And I think maybe the orange peel might have missed your mouth here and somehow landed beneath your nose.
That might have been No Shave November. I'm not sure.
I like that. This one is interesting. I mean, this looks dangerous, Jerry. Don't try this at home, right?
No, that's what you'll do to make a kid smile sometimes. It takes a lot.
Yeah, I know that. And I'm not sure what this is. I got this from your Facebook page. A toilet
I
paper.
walked by that. I didn't know what that was either. But
I didn't know if that's like something you take into the woods with you when you run out of toilet paper and you're kind of feeling it. You got to go. We've all been there.
Saving the environment.
Yep. And then this right here.
Yeah.
I mean, this throw. I mean, that's you, right? Or is that Joe Namath? Or
I'm on the left.
It looks like Joe Namath in both of them. It
yeah,
really does.
I'm unfortunately a Jet fan.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I saw something else on your YouTube page because you stepped out onto you. I think this is yours. I'm not sure. I know you're probably like wincing right now.
I don't even know if I have a YouTube page.
I mean, you have like 50 followers and you have a YouTube page. I'm going to try and pull this off here. This might not be yours, but this is something that was shared on your YouTube page. I don't know if this, you can tell me real quickly if this is you.
Don't blow your top is the wacky name of the brand new.
Is that yours?
Oh, definitely me. No,
Okay.
I have no idea what this is.
That's not you. Okay. Because, I was curious about that because when you look here, you've got Jerry Schiano. I mean, this looks like your page, 50 subscribers.
Yeah, I think if I had a YouTube page, I'd only be in the 10 to 15 subscribers. So,
all right, finally, this has gone over. Normally I make this, not so long, but this was really necessary to spread this out as long as we could fly here. Couple quick hitters, and then we'll go. You have a meeting? Are you late?
I'm good.
Is your boss going to fire you, Jerry?
My boss at Cerberus and I have a good relationship, so I think I could.
You think you're good?
From him.
Okay. Advice. These are just a couple quick hitters, and then we'll say goodbye. And I hope to talk to you again soon. Advice to those who like to dream.
Be careful, calculate it, and go do it, because it never gets easier. Because we all have obligations. But just don't jump in, but think it through.
Okay. I'm going to leave you there. So I don't want to. Do you have any questions for me, Jerry?
No, but as I know, I've always enjoyed our relationship and I'm excited about the path you're on. You have been more out there as in the industry. And while I'm a little bit more shy on that, I love what you're doing. And I love what you did on the social media side. You opened me up to that. Love seeing what you're doing.
Yeah, never too successful to keep growing, right? And that's part of what it takes to succeed and win.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, and then this will really be the end. I mean, do
Okay.
you have that fighter in you? Like what's it take to bring out the competitor in business?
It's funny. I'm like a horrible golfer. I don't care. there's really, I like to win at work. It doesn't mean that I have to be the only one to win, but I like to win at work, and I'm willing to. It's probably better said as I'm embarrassed if I lose. So I'm willing to work really hard not to lose. And that's kind of what it's all about. So I do have that fighter, being the youngest in my family and my two older brothers being much stronger than I am. I'm used to taking a punch and rolling with it.
We probably covered this when we met for lunch, but I'm also the youngest of three boys.
Right.
I know your family means the world to you. I didn't ask you about them, just how much they mean to you. And then I promise I'm going to let you go.
So, well, thank you very much, Greg.
Just want a quick word on your family and what
they have 4 daughters.
How they complete you. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 daughters, and they're all thankfully doing very well. So one in Raleigh, one in Philly, actually another one in grad school in Chapel Hill, and one still 16 at home. So it's been great.
All right. Well, Jerry, thanks so much again. Really appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Jerry Schiano, CEO of SpringEQ, with us here on One-on-One. Next weekend, next Monday, the chairman of AIM, Jonathan Haddad, will join us. You'll have an invitation going out here shortly to all of you. You'll want to hear about it. They just came off their Fuse conference, and Brokers Are Better looks like it has been put to bed, and Brokers Are Best has been reborn, but with a twist, a softer approach potentially to everyone working together for the betterment of the consumer, which is why we're in this. This went long, but it was so great. Really appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your week.